Hey guys, it's Sutonia here, and today I want to talk about the Enyo, which is a Galantia assault frigate. It's a ship that I thought I wouldn't really enjoy, but I actually ended up enjoying it a lot. It's a really fun ship to fly, and despite the drawbacks of it being a assault frigate with the terrible agility and speed, it's actually really powerful. And it just goes to show assault frigates have a really bad rap. A lot of people think assault frigates need, drastic buffs. Or these huge changes, and I don't think that's true. I think most assault frigates in the game, if they just went 300 ms faster and their agility was dropped down to below 4-second align, they would be great, at least for the solo roaming small gang scene. So this Enyo that I'm flying right now, got 4 Tech 2 Neutron blasters. This is just for max DPS and max range. You definitely want the range from the Neutron blasters too, because it works quite well with Null when combined with your 10% optimal range bonus per level from the assault frigate hull. Then just a small compact NOS. The Enyo isn't... it does do quite well, but you really want the NOS so that way you can sustain running your small ancillary longer with off-spec charges. And it just helps keep your guns on when you're getting muted. Compact Microwarpdrive, compact web, and faint scram. This is pretty standard mids. These mids on a lot of frigates. Named damage control. Tech 2 magnetic field stabilizer. I'm using a Corpii A-type explosive plating here just to cover the explosive hole that the Enyo has. You could honestly maybe even consider going for a refuge adaptive nanoplating instead. Explosive damage is actually quite rare, and it's something that I'm considering swapping out. The only thing that does explosive damage right now really are missiles, Warrior 2s, which have almost completely been replaced by Acolyte 2s in the current metagame, and then autocannons with fusion or hail, and possibly barrage. So it's actually quite rare. I'm just going to go with this because it's cheap. This A-type explosive plating is less than 2 million ISK. So it just allows you to cover that hole. But you could definitely consider replacing that for an Omni named adaptive plating if you really wanted to. And that might actually make it stronger in more scenarios. It's hard to say. Then just small ancillary armor repairer just to top yourself off. In the rig slots, I have 2 Tech 2 hull rigs. This might be a bit surprising, considering that the Enyo has like these great armor resistances. The Enyo actually has a really nice base hull buffer. If I simulate these offline, I think I can do that. You see, it has 1,500 structure hull base, which is pretty insane. It actually has more hull than a Navy Comet does. So when you online these 2 Tech 2 hull rigs, you instantly get almost 2,000. You get more than 2,300 hull HP, which really increases your buffer. And it increases, and of course, the hull rigs also don't have the speed penalties that armor rigs do. They give you more buffer, and they're just generally solid all around. It also helps you bait tank a bit more. You could consider going for resistance rigs if you really wanted to, or maybe even like rep amount rigs, but you already have problems with power grid on this fit, because this fit actually requires an implant. You will need this implant, the 2% power grid implant. It costs around 7 million ISK in general. So this fit costs about 45 million ISK to buy. Then you're also buying a 7 million ISK implant, which puts it up to around 52 million ISK. So it's about the same price as just the Hecate hull alone. Obviously, a fit Hecate is going to cost you an extra 20-25 mil on top of that. So it maybe isn't really as cost efficient as an Hecate, but I think a lot of more people fight this. And I think this is a lot more straightforward than the Hecate is. So just looking into the Enyo bonuses, you get this, let's look at the Galantia frigate bonus first. So you just get 50% damage straight up. This is actually just 2 5% bonuses combined into one. So it's like a double damage bonus. And you can see the Enyo does a ton of DPS. With Caldari Navy Antimatter loaded, and Acolyte II in the drone bay. 300 DPS cold with no implants. You could very easily add a well, unfortunately you need the power grid rig, but you could probably just carry like a 1% damage implant or something just to get even more DPS and just throw it over the 300 DPS threshold. With heat, you're looking at, I think, around 330 DPS, if not more. Yeah, 340 DPS, and that's just with Antimatter. You can, of course, swap over to Void and get, almost 400 DPS out of this ship, which is really, really good. The Enyo just deals an insane amount of DPS. It's the only real drawback of the Enyo is the fact that it's an assault frigate, like I mentioned, so it's slow. The Enyo goes 2.4k a second, which is not actually that bad for an assault frigate. The Enyo is actually among one of the faster ones. The Jagger and Wolf kind of stand out as being the fastest one, so the Enyo is sort of there as like the third fastest one. So it's not actually that terrible. The main problem is the agility here, the align time. 4.3 seconds time to go into warp. How the warp mechanics work in the game is that you always warp at the end of this number. You always warp at the end of a server tick. So if you have a 4.3 second align time and you're trying to warp, it'll take you 5 seconds to warp off. And what that means is that this Enyo is going to get locked up and scrammed by pretty much any frigate in the game. Some destroyers could probably catch it, so that makes it pretty awful for roaming. I think this Enyo is actually really, really strong, and I don't think CCP should buff it. And that's how I feel about a lot of the assault frigates, which I know might be a controversial opinion. But after flying them a lot over the past few days, I feel like assault frigates are in a good place power-wise. I think the only thing that CCP really needs to change is buff the speed and agility on them. If this was about the same speed as a command destroyer, around 2.6, 2.7, and they dropped the align time to below 4 seconds, without any speed or agility adjustments, you could warp in under 4 seconds, so you wouldn't get caught on the gate by tactical destroyers, and you'd have an easier time slingshotting faster ships. Then I think assault frigates would really come back into the meta. There aren't really that many nuances to flying this ship if you're asking about what the tactics are and such. It's a blaster ship, so you want to go up close, make sure you're using your Nosferatu. You've got a lot of buffer. A lot of that is passive too, with the damage control. You've got 2,300 structure HP with the resist from the Tech 2 damage control. It's a blaster ship. Just approach F1. If you're getting scram-kited, load Null. Thanks to the really nice bonus, the 10% optimal bonus, you can actually contest scram-kiters pretty well. If you get caught by a scram-kiter, thanks to the optimal bonus, you do get almost 5k optimal on Null. And the fall-off, of course, will go out to 9k, which is scram range. The edge of scram range, so you can generally force off scram-kiters in this Enyo. Even though it's a blaster ship, it's not actually that vulnerable. I mean, you would still probably die to a scram-kiter of the equivalent size. Like if a Hawk is scram-kiting your Vengeance is scram-kiting at 9k, you're probably gonna die. But you don't really have to worry about dying to a Kestrel or, like an Arty Firetail or some other scram-kiter like that. So anyway, I'd recommend you give the Enyo a go. I think it's really, really good. Another thing I want to mention about the Enyo 2 actually is I was actually able to kill Vexa Navy issues in it. Ratting Vexa Navy issues. Oh, that's a harpy kill. I killed a lot of Vexa Navy issues when I was roaming in it. Just because of the great kinetic resistances that it has. Like 86% kinetic resist. That's also another reason why I would consider swapping out the A-type explosive plating to a adaptive one. Just because it would give you an even better chance of killing these Vexa Navy issues. Because V&Is are everywhere and they never warp out. I should also probably preface this by saying this generally only works in the north, because in the north all the ratting VNIs are using Wasp 2s, and since you have this huge like 86% kinetic resist, you can, while you have these ancillary charges, you can actually like almost tank Wasp 2s and Caldari Navy Wasps that are on you, and you can actually kill some of them. I did still get forced out by the Vex and Navy issues that were smart enough to drop a light set that was Acolyte 2s or Warrior 2s. And sometimes, you know, I just got screwed by the belt rats. So, I mean, it's not 100%, but this Enyo can kill ratting Vex and Navy issues, and that also makes it, I think, a good pick for roaming the north, especially since a lot of Vex and Navy issues generally don't warp out because they're quite overpowered when it comes to fighting off things that are smaller than faction cruisers, since most of the time you just can't kill them, even in like tactical destroyers. But you know, if you have the right resistance to them, you can actually kill them, and that's what makes this Enyo pretty great. So yeah, give it a whirl, because I think it's a lot of fun and it's a lot better than what people expect, and you'll probably get a lot of good fights in it because of that. No, this guy hasn't. Well, let's just try it. There's the Sino Tengu Hunter.
The capacitor is empty. The capacitor is empty. The capacitor is empty.
I'm gonna have to heat this NOS.
The capacitor is empty. The capacitor is empty.
I don't know why that Tengu's just
The
decloaked
capacitor
there.
is empty.
Well, looks like we are killing him though. Maybe he doesn't have a
The
afterburner.
capacitor is empty.
I'm gonna save all my heat for the NOS. I think it's like the most important thing.
The capacitor is empty. The capacitor is empty. The capacitor is empty. The capacitor is empty.
I guess we can start preheating the guns now a bit.
The capacitor is empty.
The only thing is gonna like break the heat of my guns each time.
The capacitor is empty.
Fuck.
The capacitor is empty.
Gonna have to stop heating the NOS soon, which sucks.
The capacitor is empty. The capacitor is empty.
Okay, well we don't have heat on the NOS anymore. But it looks like he is still kind of dying.
The capacitor is empty. The capacitor is empty.
Okay, maybe I should have just gone for it then. Goodbye. I wonder what his fit was. Oh, he did have a Microwarpdrive. He just never showed it for some reason.